Bună ziua. Well, today I've been asked to talk about a novel, one of the great Italian novels by Lampedusa called Ilgattopardo, mistranslated as The Leopard, and published posthumously in 1958. It was rejected during Lampedusa's own time, and his publishers said it was unreadable, and it's now come to be regarded as one of the great Italian novels, although it was not appreciated when it was first published. The Communist Party were very annoyed about the depiction of peasants in the novel. Um, I said it's mistranslated. Ilgattopardo actually means the serval. A serval is a sort of smallish cat, uh, prevalent in North Africa, but taken as pet to into as a pet into noble Sicilian families, and this becomes the symbol of Don Fabrizio, the main character of his family. Um, the serval, an animal hunted. I think it's made a comeback now, but it was almost hunted to extinction. So a symbol for the changing society that we encounter in the novel. The novel takes place in the 1860s, and then later on, it is a long novel with lots of characters, so you have to keep abreast of what's happening. And it's really a novel about the changes in society that were happening as during the period of the Risorgimento, the unification of Italy by Garibaldi. Garibaldi landing in Sicily, and then this led to a vote whether Sicily wanted to join the Kingdom of Italy, and they voted almost unanimously to join. So it's about a changing society. It's about the decline of the nobility. It's about mortality, decay, change, with a specific Sicilian resilience, if you like, how they face up to the changes that are coming. Lampedusa wrote the book because he was suffering from depression, and it took a couple of years to write, and it was, as I said, it wasn't published during his lifetime. I'll give you a brief outline, and then we'll look at some of the main themes. So it begins in 1860. One of the leitmotifs of the book is the movement between the interior and the exterior. We go from these wonderful gardens in these palaces and villas to the interiors, where there are constant reminders of the nobility of the family. In every room in one of his palaces at Donna Fugata, his country palace, the serval cat is an emblem in every room as the couples move from room to room, reminding them of their noble heritage. We open with Don Fabrizio in the garden. He has a pet dog called Bendico, and this faithful animal is digging up the garden, and Don Fabrizio watches him. He's worried about what will happen after the inevitable revolution, whether his family will be allowed to continue to own property. He's worried about his nephew Tancredi, who is sympathetic to the to Garibaldi and the red shirts. He's married to a wife who is a total prude, and makes the sign of the cross every time they make love. He has a Jesuit chaplain who resides with the family, called Pironi, and helps him with his astronomical calculations with the mathematics. Um, he leads a double life. He in the first section he goes into Palermo. He says he wants to go for a drive in his carriage, but everyone knows he's just going to visit a brothel. and he himself feels soiled by this physical experience, because he has there is a noble side to Don Fabrizio. The tension in the book is really between the two main families. The new mayor of Donna Fogata is Don Calogero, and Don Calogero is an extremely wealthy man who has bought his political position. He has a daughter, Angelica, and the prince himself, Don Fabrizio, has a daughter called Concetta. Now, both of them are in love with his nephew, Tancredi, but Angelica flirts overtly with Tancredi, who is seen. There's a scene with lots of innuendos talking about peaches in a garden, and he's seen the next morning carrying a box of peaches to the house of Don Calogero. So we have this harmony between the interior and the exterior. They start off in the garden, and then he goes to visit her at home. He moves away, and Angelica visits the house daily. She doesn't visit to see Concetta or the other girls. She visits to get news of Tancredi, who passes messages to her via the prince and asks the prince to arrange a marriage. He puts it quite logically that a marriage will be of financial benefit to the family, because Tancredi has has no money whatsoever, is very impoverished. It turns out that Calogero, Angelica's husband, who is this mayor, is a peasant moneylender who had his own father-in-law murdered. He was discovered with 12 bullet holes in his back. He is very coarse, common, and everyone disapproves of the looming marriage. A friend of Don Fabrizio, Don Ciccio, disapproves of this marriage, but the marriage is agreed as a transaction to save the family. In the next section, the characters almost merge into each other. Don Calogero suddenly becomes more elegant, dresses more elegantly, and learns how to behave in society, whereas the prince becomes more successful and more ruthless in business. We have a new character coming in, an army colleague of Tancredi's, Count Carlo, who comes to pursue Concetta. Concetta has refused Tancredi after an argument outside a convent, and this is the key turning point in their relation. The prince in this section turns down an opportunity to join the Senate. He's offered a seat in the Senate. He could be appointed, not elected, but he turns it down. He's not in the slightest interested in politics. And it is this disinterest in the workings of the state and the new society which underpin a lot of the novel. We have Pironi arranging a marriage for his pregnant niece. He arranges a marriage, and there again, he arranges a marriage with some peasants who have made money, who are on the upward scale in terms of their finances. At the ball is an important part. The scene when the prince dances with Angelica and is invited to dine with Angelica and Tancredi, sees how unhappy they are together. He can discern that there is no real love between them. Their marriage is related to trade rather than to love. At the end of the book, I won't spoil it for you, but the prince is fairly old. He's lived for 73 years, he says, and he's only actually lived for 3 of those years. He finally realizes that his daughter Concetta is the true heiress of noble values. And this theme of changing society in decay is summed up by the hide of the dog Bendico, who's died, which finally falls to bits. It's emitting a rather unpleasant smell, and Concetta throws it away, and it disintegrates into a heap of dust at the end. And all the values they've based their life on, religion, the portrait of the Madonna in their chapel, the relics that that adorn their chapel, are shown to be false and are condemned by the cardinal, who visits and urges them to remove them. So it's a very involved, intricate novel. It's about class and changing society. It's about love and lack of relationships. And what more could you ask for? It is a superb read, and is well worthy of your time. So, if you haven't heard of Lampedusa, he was a noble himself, and he a minor noble in Sicily, and he refers to members of his own family. He wrote a letter outlining. It was pretty clear to his family who was Don Fabrizio, who was Tancredi representing. So well worth a read, Ilgattopardo or The Leopard by Lampedusa. Mulțumesc!